Welcome to episode 7 of the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host, and in today's episode we're talking to Brent Reid from Candeo Design. So Candeo is a landscape design company, and Brent has been at the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show. I think he mentioned it was about, it was more than a dozen times at least anyway. So he's quite a fixture at the garden show, so there's a fair bit discussed about that garden show, as well as a couple of international ones that he's done, and how he got in the industry obviously. And also when I asked him about where he's wanting to go next with Candeo Design, it wasn't the normal grow your business kind of answer, so that was an interesting answer as well. So far this is the longest podcast that we've done, so hopefully it's still enjoyable and there's some good information you take out of it, but I better get straight into it. So here's Brent Reid. Brent, thanks for joining us. So the first thing I'd like to ask is how you got into the landscaping industry.
Funny question, mate. I got sacked from a job in a graphic design company, a printing company, and my best mate's uncle owns Semken Landscaping, Martin Semken, and my best mate's dad drove me round to Martin's front door on Sunday afternoon and knocked on the door and asked Martin for some work for me. And it was like the end of November, 1996, end of November, and Martin said, I'll give you 2 weeks work. And I worked at Semken Landscaping for 8 years.
Oh, how many guys do they have at that time?
About 17,
yep.
I think, 17, plus maybe a couple of office staff. But yeah, about 17 on the tools. I don't know the exact count now. I'm still obviously pretty close with Martin and the crew at Semken Landscaping. I think they got to about 80 at one point.
Yeah, I think they're close to that still.
Yeah, big operation. Pretty amazingly well run. Obviously a good place for a young person to learn the craft of running a business and what it takes. Martin's always been an awesome mentor for me. Always been there at the end of the phone. Or I don't think a lot of people realise the friendship that Martin and I have, as well as the business relationship and the working business relationship as well. But there's been a friendship, a mentorship, a lot involved in it. For a long time. And also Mark Bence, who was Martin's business partner, he was amazing. So he's tattooed on my arm. So he had a huge influence on me as a young guy in the industry. Obviously was pretty ambitious and always knew I wanted more. Still think I want more. But just they helped. I was also pretty cocky as a young fella.
Yeah.
Helped me pull my head in, told me when I was wrong, and told me how to do things the right way. And they're pretty good in that sense.
So Mark Bence, he's got the award at the Garden Show named after him for their construction, the excellence in construction. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Mark passed away from leukemia. The last time I actually saw Mark, he came to the Garden Show in 2010. And he got driven around in a golf cart, and that was he passed away not long after that. But the last time I actually saw him was at the garden show. So it's pretty crazy. Every year there's a moment at the garden show where you just probably have a bit of a cry and remember. So Mark was actually the one that promised me that Semken Landscaping would build my show garden one day.
Yep.
He didn't tell me where, didn't tell me when, but he made that promise, and after he passed away, Martin actually honoured that promise. So, and we bloody snagged a gold medal for it as well. So
not a bad start.
Yeah, it was pretty good. That was the first Candeo design show garden.
So going back to when you started at Semken, did you do was construction that you started with there, and did you do an apprenticeship?
I was a bit of a jack of all trade, to be honest. I sort of did a bit of construction, a bit of maintenance. I was literally jack of all trade, master of none, because you don't want me to build a garden. I can pave a little bit. I can build a retaining wall. Pretty good at irrigation and garden lighting and those sorts of things. I'm really patient with that fiddly stuff. And detail, all those things. But yeah, you don't actually want me building a garden. And then I did quite a long time on garden maintenance. Running some sort of probably bigger contracts that they had there, which was where I started to learn how to quote jobs and quote different bits of work and helping write invoices and stuff like that. Like when I got to that sort of thing, they really opened up and helped me learn the business side of things as well. So the management, personnel, business side.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty helpful in terms of not just learning the on-site stuff, but the off-site as well.
Yeah.
So that'll come in handy when you're having the business.
Still didn't know any of them. Oh well, until I started my own business.
Yeah.
Jesus, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
Real quick.
So how long were you there for?
8 years with
Yep.
Semken. Yeah. And then transitioned into design.
Did you do any design with Semken?
Yeah, I did. It's funny you say that because I was talking about this with some of the college students the other day. I used to draw, hand draw some garden designs that Martin and Mark could take to clients to show what they were going to get. I think I got paid $200 a drawing, and some of them would take me a couple of nights. And some of them I'd punch out in a few hours, and had a drawing board set up. I was still living with Mum at the time. Had a drawing board set up in the spare room at home, and I'd go home, have a shower, jump on the drawing board, and listen to some music and draw. And it was so cathartic. It was, a real happy place for me. A lot of the stuff I was just, basically drawing what Martin or Mark were telling me to draw.
Yep.
It was a pretty good place to start to understand that these drawings actually had value. They were valuable for the guys at Semken to be able to win work, and they were getting used for the guys to build, so that the clients were getting what they thought they were paying for.
Yep.
So that was really early on. Probably do a couple a month. And then I got to a point where I'd been looking quite hard for someone to go and work for in the design industry and learn that side of things. And back then it was really, really hard. Most people designing were one-man shows, and it was pretty hard to find a job. And in the end, I was super lucky. I got a job with Jim Fogarty at Jim Fogarty Design, and there was only three of us in the office. There was Jim, Amanda Greer, and myself. I was the third one in the office, and that was awesome. And that's probably where I really learnt a love of plants.
So how old were you then?
24, 25.
Yeah. And you hadn't had any formal training in design? Was it all just what you'd learnt?
No, I'd studied. I went back to Burnley and I went to Burnley and studied horticulture. So I got that sort of grounding in that side of things, which was amazing at the time. I hated school. I hated high school. I didn't love. I liked going to school because all my mates were there, but the learning part of it and being in class didn't really excite me that much. Went back and studied at Burnley. Took ages. Finally got my pass there, and went. It really filled in a lot of gaps. A lot of gaps in what I'd learned on site.
Yep.
Sort of started to understand plants, how they, I really enjoyed plant biology, plant science, those things. Plant ID was amazing, and soil science. Like they're the things that I really thoroughly enjoyed and took pride in learning. So it was good. It was just long, and at the time I was playing pretty serious basketball, so I was working 5 days a week. I was studying 1 day a week, so I was working most Saturdays, and then I was playing, highly competitive basketball, and traveling with that a fair bit. And it was pretty full on. I don't know how I did it.
It's the youth.
Yeah.
The youthful exuberance. So with Jim Fogarty, how long were you there for? And
about 4 years, just under. Yeah, a bit over 3.5 years, I think.
Some pretty good projects you were working on there, I'd imagine.
Oh, mate, one of the first projects, a project in our first year was Jim was the first Australian garden designer to go to Chelsea. So, to be involved, not from a design sense, don't get me wrong, I'm not claiming that, but, sitting there drafting plans and, being involved in the office side of things and the back end side of that project was unbelievable. And, there's some pretty amazing stories that no one really knows that went on. And, they're probably more Jim's to tell than mine, but just being involved in that was pretty amazing. I got to draw an isometric drawing of the garden that ended up in the handbook for Chelsea Flower Show. So, like, my own artwork ends up in that.
Did you get a copy of it?
I had one. I don't know if I've still got it. It might be floating around somewhere. But, yeah, it was, just something like that is, God, as a 19-year-old standing on Marty Semkin's doorstep, I never thought I'd have, something that I'd drawn in the Chelsea Flower Show handbook.
Yeah,
for sure. So.
That's not a bad start. So, and after that, is that when you started Candeo?
Yeah, 2006 I started Candeo. So it's funny. Someone popped up on LinkedIn and said, it's this month actually, June 2021. It's 15 years. And I didn't even realise. Someone popped up and goes, congratulations on 15 years. I'm like, shit, that's actually a fairly long time. So, it was a bit crazy.
So what, did you have a big plan to go out for yourself, or did it just happen all of a sudden?
It kind of evolved into it, to be honest. It's sort of, Jim started to head in a bit of a different direction. Amanda went overseas. The dynamics of the business changed a bit, and it just kind of evolved into that's what was right. I probably wanted more as well. Like, I was probably sitting there going, I do want more. I want, design freedom. I want to be earning more money. Like, all those.
So you decided to work for yourself, wanting to earn more money, is it?
Yeah. People tell you the only way you make money is work for yourself, but I haven't come across that yet.
It's only been 15 years. I'm sure you got to keep trying.
I'll get there. And
was that, so how soon after starting Candeo did you do that garden show build?
That was 2006. That was 2012.
All right.
So I'd done 3 show gardens with almost under Jim's banner. So we had a second company. Well, Jim had a second company set up called Blue Design Solutions, which Amanda and I were the original principal designers of. We did 3 gardens under that. So Amanda and I did 2 together, and then Jim and I put one together. So that was 2004, 5, and 6. So they were my first sort of exploration into design side of MIFGS, but I'd worked at MIFGS on gardens with Semken for years and loved it. It was like the closest thing that I could find to team sport in landscaping.
Yeah, that's what I like about it as well, because it's competitive as well, because you can win.
Yeah.
But so that you started in '96, and is that the first year of the garden show as well? Because I know Semken had been there the whole time.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was the first or second. 96, I think 96 was the first, but the first show I went to was March 97. So I'd only been at Semken for 3 months or 4 months.
Yep.
And I went literally just shovel and mulch and a labourer.
Yeah.
But loved it, like was addicted. And I met Vivid Design, Carolyn and Joby Blackman. And they were the first designers I'd met. And I'm like, what? You can do this as a job? I want to do that. So, yeah, because I always had that creative side. That's where I wanted to be. Something. I get bored doing things that aren't creative. I need that outlet. Yeah. So, I met them. They've been awesome. Like that, been friends with Karen and Joby since then, and they really helped. Like, let me know you can do it. Like, you can do this. It is a job, and yeah, back then there wasn't many designers. It was just a new industry, really.
Yep.
A new thing. You get an architect to design your house, but we'll just wing the garden. So
No, there's probably not a lot of that that's changed as well in terms of a lot of architects that they don't care that much about what happens outside, which is crazy, I think.
yeah, I think it's becoming. I think the dollar values of landscapes, like people, if they're going to spend $1 million on their home, I think even clients just realise that, hang on, we need to know what we're doing, we need to know what we're spending, and we need to have an idea of where this is headed, or it's not a bottomless pit. So it's really funny. I felt like Backyard Blitz actually years ago did a decent job of telling people we start with the design, and it kind of changed. It felt like it pushed everything ahead 10 years with in 5 years of that. Like, we start with the design, and they did a really good job. The plan had come up on screen, and this is what we're going to do. And they sort of don't get me wrong, the show had other issues, but in terms of thinking that you can build a garden in 2 days, that wasn't great for the contractor's side of things. But for a design point of view, I thought it did a really good job of.
I don't know. It's because a lot of people say that about those shows, saying how bad they are. But I think it's interesting. You got a positive view of them, but I don't know if they're all the same though in terms of actual being 2 days. But I know the shows I've worked on that if it says it's been built in 5 days, that's how many days it takes to build it. So it is actually possible if you put all that planning, and it's not the most productive way to do it. It's not that quality or anything like that, but things can be done quick if you put a lot of organisation into it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the funny thing about Backyard Blitz, mate, when I was working with Jim was the Melbourne designer for Backyard Blitz. So we actually did a lot of the design work, and I designed a couple of gardens myself for Backyard Blitz. And where it got confusing was people thinking that those four, Jody, Scott, Nigel and Jamie, people thinking that those four people, once the cameras went off, they didn't work. So the truth about that was they all worked their asses off, and they all had a labourer or two with them. So instantly, and they were pulling 16-hour days.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, there's 4 people on site, four people, and they've got 4 people. So just the 4 main characters of the show, they were doing 2 days every day because they're pulling 16-hour days. So all of a sudden, on Saturday, they've worked 8 man days. Sunday, another 8. That's 16 man days. And then they've got labourers. So all of a sudden, these gardens are taking, 32 man days, but people only see it's 2. And then the amount of crew that has to get in and help get it over the line because you're running out of time. So, we'd turned up to gardens and they're like, get on a barrow, start shoveling mulch. And you'd, we'd be pushing barrows just to help get it over the line kind of thing. So the whole understanding, the whole understanding of how it works is a bit out. And, the garden shows the same. You have 10 days. You have 10 days, but some of those gardens might have 10 people on it for 10 days.
That's it. Yeah, it's exactly the same as that, isn't it? Like some of those gardens, you're not building them in 10 days in a normal situation.
Yeah, but when you're putting 100 man days, like, oh, okay, yeah, you can do that in 100 man days, and yeah, you might do it differently, but yeah, it's just that it's the perception and the understanding of man hours, man days. Also, 10 man days at the garden show, you're pulling 12, 14-hour days doing that. So, you're working 1.5 days every day, and then you've got 10 people, anything from 4 to, 15 people on site to build those gardens. So.
Yeah. And they're not documentaries either, so it's not showing what it's actually going to be like. It's partly entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. So, look, it's crazy, but I mean, you've done the block. We've done the block a couple of times, and you get 6 days, and the clock's ticking every second of that. So, it's crazy, but it's also you go back to that team aspect. It's every time I've done a garden show, I've walked away with a new friend or multiple new people that you actually care for because you've gone through that process, and it changes you, and it's I think in a positive way. I certainly encourage people to look at doing show gardens or look at being involved in the show somehow because the networking, the understanding of it, the challenge, all of those things are just, to me, so positive. Like it's actually worth investing in to be able to do it.
Yeah, I think that's part of the addictiveness of it is all the people that are there. So you're going back and seeing all the same people, like Andrew, the forklift driver. He's at Mifkas. They're the same guy who operates all the forklift crews each year. And like Warner supplying the plants, getting to know Andrew Smith as well. Just all the people who are there just about every year. You just develop great relationships with them.
It's unbelievable. Mate, you talk about Langers. He, I had him, mate. I had an hour conversation with him on the phone about 4 weeks ago. Just ringing up, checking in, catching up. We haven't seen each other for a couple of years. The only place we really bump into each other is at the show. But I actually class him as a friend, and he's a champion human. And to have an hour on the phone with him and just catching up, what have you been doing, and how's the wife, and they're just good people. And you and I met at the show years ago. I met my business partner for London College of Garden Design in Sydney at the garden show. Like that was 2014. I never had any idea that 6 years later we'd start a landscape design college here in Melbourne from the UK, and just crazy where those things take you.
And when you say you go to the garden show, the most common question is, "Oh, do you get any work out of it?" But that's not really the point of it in the end.
No, it's. I mean, you want to because you feel like you have to justify, justify a price tag of all that work and all that time and all that money. But I think if you're going there with the sole intention to only get work and that's all you're looking for, I think you're going to miss out on some of the best parts of what the garden show has to offer. So, I don't know, the amount of relationships that I've built by, meeting a supplier or using a new product and, it's amazing. You can't, it's hard to quantify.
So how many have you worked? Do you know how many years you've been there
At the show?
Yeah.
The short answer is too many.
Was it quicker to count how many you haven't been there?
I did. I think I was 8 in a row. I think I was 8 in a row as Candeo design, and in that time we built 16 gardens in that year. The most gardens we built 4 gardens in 1 year, 2 show gardens, a display garden, and a retail garden. The Candeo crew were really happy when I walked in and said, and we're doing the 4th one. But there is actually an interesting story behind the 4th one. So 4's the most. We've done 3 a couple of times. And multiple years of just 1. But, it's pretty crazy. So then there was 3 with Jim or Blue Design Solutions.
Yep.
So I think that's 11 years as a designer. And I think I did 8 years with Semken on the tour. So, I think I might, as a total, it was 20 or 19 out of 22.
And you've done other garden shows as well. I saw you went to New Zealand.
Went to New Zealand. That was crazy. Hard. Yeah, hard to do gardens with budgets overseas. So we got a good budget. Don't get me wrong. It was a nice, healthy budget from New Zealand.
So is it similar to the Melbourne Garden Show where you've got this amount, and if you want to spend over that, you can. It's your money, or is it stricter?
No, they gave us a budget to come over, but that also covered our accommodation. So yeah. I think we had 25,000 from New Zealand flower show, and I think I spent 12 of it on accommodation, flights, accommodation, car hire, and we,
fancy hotels, I imagine that.
Mate, we had a tiny little cottage. It's a good spot, but this backed onto a pub.
That's important.
Conveniently, I didn't know that when I booked it. Backed onto a pub in a pretty cool part of Auckland, and I hired a Mitsubishi SUV thing, like ASX or whatever they are. We got upgraded to a Mercedes, which was awesome. So I turned up first day and everyone was, look at this cock. But yeah, it was such a good car, I bought one.
So did you have a crew who you took over, or
at the time my wife Kim was working for Candeo. So I went for the first week, and Kim and Charlotte, who was working for me as well, they came over on the Friday. So I left on the Saturday. We started on the Sunday. Me and a chippy, it was just 2 of us. And Kim and Charlotte came over on the Friday and helped with planting and mulching and those things. And that was it. That was 4 of us. Yeah. And I look back on it now and I'm like, a bit of extra help, a bit of extra detail wouldn't have gone astray. But
so how do you go with tools? Did you?
The chippy turned up with everything, and then
was he from New Zealand or was he?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he's a Kiwi bloke that I met via Instagram. So he heard me do a radio interview, and it was quite funny. So this was about 4 weeks out from the show. Didn't have anybody to build the garden. A landscape contractor over there had said that they'd do it, and then not long after this, they just complete radio silence, just fell off the face of the earth. And I did this interview, and on the Friday, we were trying to do a garden, and we just couldn't get it in budget. I just couldn't see how we could make it happen. And on the Friday afternoon, I literally screwed up the piece of paper and threw it in the bin. And we started redesigning, and came up with a concept that afternoon. like an idea concept. I hadn't drawn anything, but we came up with this idea concept, and I went on the radio the next morning, and the guy goes, "Oh, can you tell us about the garden?" And I'm like, "Mate, considering we binned it at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, no, I can't tell you too much because we'll start reconcepting on Monday. But I've got an idea." And I said, "What I can tell you is I need a graffiti artist or local New Zealand street artist." And the next he goes, "How do we get in contact with you?" And I said, "Oh, Instagram's probably the easiest." And the next thing, I got this message from a guy in New Zealand who's a carpenter, and his name's Kaz, and absolute bloody champion human. And he's like, "Oh, mate, you need to check out this guy, Inu. He's an amazing artist." So then we started chatting. I'm sitting on the couch. It's like 5 o'clock on Saturday morning, sitting on the couch, chatting on Instagram to this guy, and he goes, "Who's building your garden?" "Don't know, mate." And he goes, "Oh, I'm a chippy. I can give you a hand if you like." So we just struck up this friendship via Instagram, and funny dude, and mate, absolute salt of the earth human. And it was him and me. We built this garden. First time I fired a nail gun, he's like, "Mate, you're not allowed to do that anymore." So it was funny. It was an experience. It was bloody hot. I've never got so sunburned in my life.
Yeah.
And I've never been. It was hot, and then it was wet.
Yeah.
And it just, unbelievable.
So how big was the garden? They have similar size.
10 by 10. We made that one. Yeah. They wanted us to go bigger, and I'm like, "Mate, we just can't with that many days and that many people."
Just put grass in there.
Yeah.
Really.
What a turf. We'll do 20 by 20. So that was interesting. Really enjoyed it. Like, I think I did. I love the garden. It got judged badly, but like it didn't get judged well. I don't think the judges quite understood the whole concept of it. You've judged landscape design awards and stuff like that for Landscape Victoria.
Construction on that, not design.
Oh, did you? Yeah. When a judge walks up to you and says, "Oh, I wouldn't have done that. I would have done this," I think you shouldn't be a judge.
Yeah, I spoke to Jason Hodges about that in terms of awards. Like, it comes down to whoever's judging the award on their opinion on it a lot of the time.
Yeah. But I think you've got to put your own personals aside.
You've got to brief.
Yeah, you read the brief, and personal opinion doesn't matter whether you like it, don't like it. You got to judge the garden. I've judged design awards for Landscape Victoria, and I take it really bloody seriously. Like, this is people's blood, sweat, and tears that you're dealing with, and I think you got to respect that. And it's got absolutely nothing to do with whether or not I personally like it. It's about judging to Landscape Victoria, give me the criteria, and it's about judging to that criteria and the design brief that you handed. It's got nothing to do with my opinion or my ego or like. And I think when a judge walks up to you and says, "Oh, I would have done it like this," I think, well, I can't put too much weight in what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I actually said that to one of the judges. I go, "It's got nothing to do with you. This isn't your garden." And she just didn't understand that at all. So, but it's also, I look back on it. It was probably judged right. We got a silver medal. It was probably a silver.
All right.
I'll look back at photos and think, "Oh, geez, it's a lot on." But yeah, we didn't have a lot of options. So it was judged right. It was probably just the way you're spoken to about it is probably where I took a bit of annoyance.
Yeah. So how did it go? How did you get into that in the first place in terms of going over there?
Mate, I saw it. I was watching it on Instagram, and so Christian Jenkins went the year before. I always wanted to do Ellerslie Flower Show. Ellerslie years ago, I thought it was really creative, and they really embraced creativity. And it's sort of, I always wanted to do it because I thought that's the place where you can go and get a bit funky and, do some stuff that, I don't know, Melbourne, maybe it's because it's my home ground. You feel obligated to a certain degree to go and do something that represents your work or, I wish I could get out of that and go and do something at Melbourne that was just fucking out there and have some fun. And I'd prefer to do that because, I don't know.
Just enjoy it more.
I'm not going to Melbourne to try and... That's the hard part. Now, I'm not going to Melbourne to try and get work. But then how do you explain that to a contractor? Like, I don't care if I get any work out of it. Well, then contractors are going to go, we do because we're going to drop a heap of money and time and effort into doing this. So to go and have some fun is great. But
have you ever been to the Singapore Garden Show?
I'd love to.
Because I went there, I think it was 2000, I don't remember when it was, but that's like really, like that sounds like right up your alley because there's fantasy gardens and there's a really arty kind of stuff. It's a mix between landscaping and art kind of blended in.
Yeah, that's New Zealand's, Singapore's always been, I'd love to go. I tried to apply. I got shortlisted a couple of, when was it? 2020 for, what was it last year? 21, COVID year. 20 last year. I got shortlisted and then I didn't get selected. Didn't get in anyway.
That would have been a letdown if you did.
It didn't happen. So no, I'd love to do Singapore.
And you'd do something like arty and edgy kind of.
Yeah, I think so. You got to have some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want any work over there.
No, it's much easier to go away and do something out there. So yeah, I don't know. That'd be awesome. Hampton Court. Everybody has asked me, would you do Chelsea? And I'm pretty sure I'd lose my business. It's best part of 2 months.
The cost of it as well. It's just insane.
And unless you're getting paid somehow, I can't see. My business is me now. I can't not get paid for 2 months. So, I don't know how that'd happen. I'd love to do it, but Hampton Court's always been the one that, because they have fantasy gardens.
Yeah, right.
They're all, I'm not sure what they call them, but.
And would that be the second biggest garden show?
Yeah. It's also much more spread out. It's on a much bigger square meterage. So, yeah.
Have you been to Chelsea?
No, never been.
Oh.
I lived in the Middle East for 3 years, and every year I tried to tee up going to Chelsea, and it fell right around. So here in Australia, the crazy times like from the end of grand final, AFL grand final, that run to Christmas. And in the Middle East, it was like that sort of March, April, May in the lead up to summer holidays, and then everybody buggers off over out of the heat. And Chelsea obviously being May, it just never happened. I could never work it that I could get away to go to it. And there was a couple of parts where I was going to go and help Will Wilson, Willie Wildlife Sculptures, do his, and it just hasn't quite worked out.
So he's planning on going over there, is he?
He's probably done, I don't know, I'd be guessing 10, 12, 14 Chelseas in a row. So he packs up containers and heads over with all his products, and it's great advertising for him. So that's it's funny. That was one of the things that got us to do the Willie Wildlife Garden at Mifkus a couple of years ago. We're like, he goes to Chelsea, but he doesn't come to Melbourne, so we did a garden with him.
It's pretty crazy how big of a business he is, and he's just down in Ocean Grove, and most people in Geelong wouldn't know exists.
An absolute humble champion. Amazing. Like, his work's phenomenal. He and his wife are just the most beautiful people. He's as good as anybody in the world at what he does, and you can't you can't get him to talk about how good his stuff is, or it's absolutely amazing. So I've got a snail sitting on our bench. That's we used his giant snail in like 2 or 3 gardens.
Yeah.
And then I designed their garden at their studio, out the front of the Hive studio in Ocean Grove. And he goes, "Oh, how much do I owe?" And I said, "Can we do a contra deal?" So we took a snail. It's about 30 centimetres long, probably weighs a couple of kilos of bronze, and we took that as just a reminder of the times, the gardens we've done together, and the times we've shared, and they're just amazing people doing phenomenal work.
And again, did you meet him through the garden shows?
Yeah, I met him years ago when I worked with Jim Fogarty. Jim knew Will, and we met through shows, and I think we put some product into a big garden that Jim designed at Wonga Park. Huge garden. So it was, just those relationships that, you discover, you harbour, you kind of cherish.
And you designed at the Malaysian Garden Festival as well?
Yeah, that was...
When was that?
Oh, that was a weird one. 17, 18. That was strange. Yeah.
Did you?
I basically sent a drawing.
No, right.
Yeah.
And someone else built it.
I was hoping that I was going to get to go, and it just didn't eventuate. And someone else built it. And I got photos sent to me, and I'm like, they won't ever see the light of day. But it was interesting. I did it. I had a garden there, but it was not ideal. In Sydney.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that as well. Like, how does that compare to Melbourne in terms of the running of it?
The organisation was awesome. Anthony Bastic was the guy in charge of the whole thing. Mate, he runs a really tight ship, and all lovely human. It's just disappointing that, I don't know, Sydney shows just don't seem to work like the Melbourne show does, unfortunately. I don't know what it is. They've had a few cracks at it, and it normally lasts 2 or 3 or 4 years and vanishes. It's really, really sad because first time I ever went, it was in the Domain. And it was unbelievable. Literally staying in the heart of Sydney, and we'd walk down every day, build this garden on the harbour. It was phenomenal. So, and then the second one was at Centennial Park in 2014, the one we did. And it rained the whole time.
That doesn't help.
It rained for 2 weeks. Like, there was one day that I didn't put a raincoat on at all, and I was in a t-shirt. And there was one day where I literally didn't take the hood off, like from 7 till 7. It just rained non-stop.
What time of year did they have it?
November.
All right.
It was horrible. I literally, my work clothes, once the show opened, I literally threw them in the bin. Pair of shoes, bin. Couldn't get anything dry. It was horrible. Been wearing stuff for 2 weeks. It was almost mouldy. You can all go. Threw away a pair of Air Max, which breaks my heart. But they just got binned.
Oh, jeez. What year was that when they do the last one?
14.
Oh, really?
14. Yeah.
And they haven't done one since then?
No.
All right.
It's the numbers, like, it rained during the whole show as well. Yeah. So, you watch MIFGS. MIFGS will get 110,000 people. If there's a rainy day, it'll get 95, like 90. There's such a big dip in the weather, and they just copped a really shit break. So,
And by the sounds of it, they need everything to go right to keep it going. So that's certainly
in your first couple of years, that's the last thing you want is 4 to 5 days of rain during the show. It was bad because we actually went up the year before. Phil Withers did a garden, and we were, at the time, Phil and I were sharing a studio together, and my wife and I said, let's jump on a plane and go to Sydney for the day and go to the show. And we went up, and I don't think I've ever been so sunburned in my life. And they just got sun for 3 weeks, and we just got rain for the whole time we were there. So it was like polar opposites. Everyone was complaining about, oh my God, there's no shade. We're getting sunburnt. And the year after, it was just like, oh my God, we're all drowning. So yeah, it was pretty sad. But it was that was fun. It was a fun show. Like I said, I met Andrew Fisher Tomlin from the UK. He did 2 gardens. Both years. Well, a garden both years. Met him, became friends, stayed in contact. Ended up starting a business together.
So how's that going? So is it the London College of Design, Melbourne?
The London College of Garden Design. Mate, it's like I said, I hated school when I was there, so I got a few friends that think it's bloody hilarious that I'm now a director of a college, which is pretty funny when you think about it. It's going well. We're in our second year. We're taking intakes for next year, and I am blown away at the level of information that. So all of our stuff comes out of the UK. The UK college has been running for 15 years, about to start 16, and the refinement that they've put into teaching and lecturing landscape design in the UK is unbelievable. So then we just Australianise some stuff. So there's some things that we put more emphasis on teaching over here that the London College doesn't do. Swimming pools, little things like that. So we've Australianised it a little bit. They run three courses over there. So they do a landscape design diploma, they do a planting design diploma, and they do a construction design course. And we rolled all 3 courses into 1 2-year course.
That's handy. So the people who have done your course will have some sort of construction knowledge as well?
Yeah, not necessarily hands-on, but everything we teach from a landscape designer's point of view. So, and we put a heap of emphasis on making sure that, the designer-contractor relationship is strong. Understanding what a designer should be looking for in terms of construction, and understanding, at what point you're asking questions and at what point you're making demands. So, we talk a lot about that sort of stuff. We cover some horticulture, but once again, it's all from a landscape designer's perspective. So what I found was studying landscape design here in Australia, it was either horticulture with some design stuff bolted on, or construction with some design stuff bolted on. Whereas we're teaching landscape designers. We're not teaching horticulturalists or contractors, or we are teaching landscape design.
Yep.
So semester 3 for us is planting design, and we lectured that for the first time this year with our second year students. We've just finished it, and I was like, oh my God, I wish someone had taught me this shit when I was 14, 15 years ago. It's pretty amazing. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff that I think I described it as, I got taught all this stuff, but I got taught it in bits, really disjointed bits of information coming from everywhere, and you kind of put it together and work out your own style and solution. And whereas what the college teaches you is like set out, and it's a structure of how to design planting schemes.
Yep.
And it's, mate, if I knew that 15 years ago, God, it'd be very different. So, yeah, so it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey in 2 years, well, in 4 years, because it took us 18 months to get it up and running. Yeah, and now we're just trying to grow it and build it. And the UK course has changed the way landscape design's lectured over there, and I think when people work out what we're doing and how we're doing it, I think it'll change it here as well.
Yeah.
So I honestly believe that. It's, I don't know, you take it as a sales pitch if you like, but if you see what we're doing, and in 6 months of our first year students, some of the stuff they're producing is like, fucking hell, this is awesome.
So the students who you've got, have they done any sort of, like have they done any work in landscaping before or design or?
At the moment, we've got, for our first years, we've got a lady who owns a garden maintenance business, and we've got a guy who owns a property with a garden that they open, him and his partner open every weekend. So they've sort of got more hands-on garden maintenance side of things, and most of our students or career changes. So people bring in amazingly diverse skills from other areas, and it blows my mind to see what some of the skills that people bring in and are bringing into our industry from other areas. So it's as someone who's only ever done landscaping, design, horticulture.
Yep.
Yeah, I look at some of the skills and I'm like, fuck, I wish someone had taught me that.
Yeah, I had a short spell working at a bank, and even just that, working at a big bank, working understanding all the staff management things they do and training and education. So yeah, you can see how, even though there's nothing to do, a bank is nothing to do with landscaping, there'd be something from every industry that you can bring across.
Yeah, and that's what I think people who speak to me about potentially coming and doing the course, I think a lot of them feel quite self-conscious about, our students are generally older. I think our average age is about 38, 39 this year or something.
38's not old.
No,
that's what I am.
It's not old, but starting a new career, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
I'd certainly, God, if someone told me I had to change career tomorrow, it would scare the hell out of me. And so it's a huge thing, massive thing to turn around and decide to change careers or head in a different direction. But I actually make a huge emphasis of telling these students, remember that you've got experiences from other industries that are going to help. Because I think it becomes a real, I don't know anything and I don't have any skills, and you've got plenty.
So when you think of how long you can design for, it's super young.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I find it crazy that I don't know. I still feel young, but yeah, been designing for this long. It's
yeah, that's it. Yeah, you've been doing it 15 years, but still are young in that term.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah, the colleges, I don't know. It's definitely got some growing to do. It's so different from anything that's being offered here in Australia. I think that's the hard part about getting people to understand the difference. It's not like studying at any of the existing institutions or.
There's no point doing it if it was, because then if it's a similar thing to that, then
Yeah.
you've got to have something that stands out.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the things a few years ago when Kim was working for Candeo, she wanted to do planting design. She wanted to go and really study it and hone in on. And we looked everywhere, and we kept coming. Like, I actually said, look all over the world, because if you have to go overseas and study for 6 months, let's do it. If that's what you want to do, let's work it out, and we'll make it happen. And she kept coming back to London College of Garden Design, and I'm like, you just keep coming back because we know the people who run it. And then I started looking into it, and I'm like, no, this is by far the best training for that sort of thing that you can go to. We were looking in Europe, UK, and the US. We couldn't find anything like it in Australia. So, so that was our first foray. And then a couple of years after that, I actually made the phone call to Andrew to say, mate, if you've ever thought about taking this international,
it's only London and Melbourne, is it?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So it's interesting. I don't know. We see what happens, but yeah.
So with with COVID shutting the garden show down, were you lined up to do anything for the anniversary?
No, I'd actually. What happened? I'd said yes. I wasn't, because they were doing the best of the best. So it was the best in show winners, and we haven't won a best in show. We've had a couple of near misses, but we haven't won one. So we didn't. But then by the time it got close, I think it was about October, November, December. It was December 2019. I'd sort of said, yes, I'll do one. And then we were trying to sort out sites, and everybody had their sites for, months and months. And the site we were looking at, I just didn't love. I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do on that site. There was some overhanging branches. And in the end, I just said, doesn't feel like it's right. So I'll sit this one out. And we pulled the pin, and then it all fell apart anyway, which was shattering. Obviously, like you say, you build these relationships with these people. The guys at IMG, like Marcus and Kat and the team, they were on site. They'd moved all their offices to site, and they were about to start building. And 5 o'clock on Friday evening, because we were running a competition for London College of Garden Design. So we were going to do a planting competition. And I got the phone call at about 5 o'clock on the Friday night, and we were meant to start all the crews were going to start building on the Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. So it was literally 11th hour. And your heart breaks. You know how much people, how much people have put into it at that stage to have the rug pulled out. It was the right decision, obviously. But, it doesn't make it feel better for people that you care about and people that you admire having to go through that. So, and then even this year, they made the right decision again. But it's it's pretty hard. You sort of you hope that it can come back bigger and better. And
I can't see why it would. I suppose the numbers are going to be down whenever it starts up again, whether that's next year or not. But eventually it'll work its way back up.
There was talk that it was going to move to spring, and I'm really glad that didn't happen. Spring shows, I've done 2 of them, and so hard. So
why is that? Because it rains the whole time.
One rained the whole time. The hard thing was plants, like especially New Zealand, trying to get plants that have come out of winter and have grown on enough to be of show standard. It's almost impossible. And here in Melbourne, like, I don't know, the last 5 years, you try and buy plants in September, October, November, and it's borderline impossible. So, I honestly couldn't see how the resources could get it done, which is sort of my point, which made me scared.
Yep.
And nursery, everyone's busy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's my concern about this year. They were talking about having it in October.
Yeah.
Said, yeah.
October's too early too.
Yeah.
Like, and then November's too late.
Yeah.
Like, October's too early from a plant's point of view. In November, it's too close to Christmas. Nobody wants to be doing that.
So how did you go about getting over to the UAE? Just going back to that, like, and what was that like working over there?
UAE was, God, every adjective you can imagine, good and bad, and it could happen in the same day. It was crazy. So I was sort of, a connection here in Australia was involved over there, and they'd sort of been at me for a few years to come over, and they offered a 3-year contract. They offered a 2-year contract, and it didn't feel right at the time. I was when a lot of these offers were coming in, I was just married, and it just didn't seem right to go. And then my marriage actually ended, and I got an offer 6 weeks, and I'm like, that seems like a pretty good place to go and hide for 6 weeks. And I was there 3 years. So I literally didn't unpack my suitcase for the first year. Every time I'd do a load of washing, I'd put all my clothes back in my suitcase. Just never felt... it was strange. It never felt like I was going to be there a long time. But that just got laid, mate. Never felt like I was going to be there a long time. I never quite trusted it, I don't think. And but it was pretty cool. Like, there was some bloody amazing things. I drove some really cool cars and rode some really good motorbikes. Drove a Ferrari F430 at a ridiculous speed on a public road, which was fun and stupid. Driving a car that you can't afford at 270 kilometres an hour was pretty stupid, but fun. Yeah, Jesus, if you're going to have a Ferrari for a day, you're going to wring its neck, I reckon. So that was a good time. I've got 2 gardens on Palm Jumeirah, Palm Island. Did a botanical museum in Sharjah.
Cool.
Just some cool stuff that you never, ever in your wildest dreams imagine that, you get the opportunity to do some of that stuff. And then, the worst day of my working life as well. We had a guy on one of our sites actually die, which, mate, horrible. Worst phone call I've ever heard. You just don't want that shit to, ever happen. Yeah. So, young Indian guy, like all our labour was Indian, Sri Lankan, Bangladeshi, and we got a delivery of steel. We were building a swimming pool on the roof of a high-rise, and got a delivery of steel, and it was kind of down some steps and around a corner, so it was out of the way of where we were actually working. and he took a grinder and went to open the pack of steel, but it had a stone cutting blade on it. And he touched it on the metal, and the blade disintegrated and hit him in the throat. And, yeah, pretty bad. And then, mate, then it opens up a whole can of worms, and all the directors of the company get called to site. So we all jump in as fewer cars as possible, and we drive to site. And it's like you hand your business cards over, and it's almost a raffle of who's going to jail. And my card said landscape designer. So when I got there, they said, "What do you want on your business card?" And I said, "Oh, landscape designer." And they go, "Don't you want like director of landscape design or director?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just a landscape designer, mate. I'm happy with that." And then, basically, everybody that had director or head of, off to jail.
Jeez.
So, most of them got out that night. Like, I think our owner got out at like 4 a.m. or something. But our site foreman, he was in for a couple of days. It's just a weird system that you got to deal with, and but still, mate, it's fuck. I never ever want that phone call ever again in my life. It's and I didn't know the bloke.
Yeah,
didn't know him. But on a everyone should be able to go to work and come home.
How long after that did you come back?
Probably maybe 6 or 8 months. Probably wasn't that long.
Yep.
My brother had a little girl in September, and then I left in January, and it got to like she turned 3, and I'm like, mate, I haven't been a part of this kid's life. Like, I just, it's time to go home. So, came home just to be sort of closer to my niece. We've got an awesome relationship. We always have, even as a 2 and 3 year old. Me and her had just got along really well, and just had a really cool relationship. And that was the catalyst. When she turned 3, I'm like, nah, it's time to get out of here. So came back, and it was a really weird place. It's like I said, the best and worst adjectives you can think of can happen in the same day. Like, you can be having the best day and it can turn to shit. You can be having the worst day and something amazing happens, and just random, so random. And but it's really grinding. Like, you can't describe the heat. Like, people say, "Oh, is it hot?" And you're like, "It's not hot. It's ridiculous." Like, and unless you've been there and experienced it, you just can't fathom it. Like, you're talking 55 on site, and
55 degrees.
Yeah, and then at night, like, it's 48 and 100% humidity, and there's 3 months a year where it really doesn't drop below 40 degrees day or night. So you go out, like, in Melbourne, you have that week of like 4 or 5 days in a row, and it's like 40 degrees, and you're like, oh my god, it's fucking ridiculous. But you go out at night, and you walk in somewhere and it's 40 degrees, and you walk out at midnight and the doors open up and it's 26, and it's like, oh, that's refreshing.
Yeah.
Over there, you go out and you walk in, you're walking out of somewhere, and as a Melburnian, you have this thought that the doors are going to open up and you're going to get this rush of mid-20s, and you get this rush of 48 and 100% humidity. And like, you walk to the car and you can feel that your clothes are starting to get damp because it's just so wet, and like everything's like just wet and slimy, and it's insane. And then but to describe it, or like even when you describe it to people, it's going to be hot and it's going to be humid. Like they get there and it's like, oh my God, you've got no idea. Like I'd go to a meeting. This is how weird it is. You go to a meeting, or you'd go into a shop and you get out of your car and you'd leave your car running with the air conditioner on, because you'd get back into your car if you turned it off and it'd be like 70, 75 degrees in your car. Right. So you'd see some of the most amazing cars, like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Rolls Royces, Range Rovers, the whole shooting match, sitting outside shops with engines running. You're just like, mate, where am I? This joint's crazy. And then you can go skiing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got an indoor ski site that's unbelievable. But typical, so Dubai, like you, when they did all their calculations, they were like, oh, we're going to use, say, 40 tonne of snow a day. Like once they got it running, they were using like 240 tonnes of snow a day because the heat. And the first lot of windows they put in between, so it's in a shopping mall. So you can walk along through the shopping mall and you look out and it's just winter wonderland. The first lot of windows they put in exploded. Like once they got it down to temperature, it just blew the windows out. And I think they went through 2 or 3 or 4 lots of glass before they could get the thickness and the temperatures right for it to hold. Like it's, if you think of it, if you dream it, that's the place to take that idea, because it could become reality. But some amazing experiences. Some cool gardens, met cool people. It's a really strange place though. You'd never feel like you've probably got real friends. Like there's not really that many people that I speak to anymore. Like once you leave, it's kind of transient city. So once you leave, you're out kind of thing. So probably only got 3 or 4 people that I actually class as real friends from that time that I actually met over there that I've stayed in contact with. So it's pretty weird.
And what year was that? Was that why you had Candeo going?
I'd started Candeo and then started Candeo. So 2007 to 2010.
Yep.
So my 15 years that I was banging on about, bragging a bit before, is
still counts.
Probably 12. I was still paying tax.
Yeah, my 12 years includes 2.5 at the bank, but I was still doing stuff on weekends, so it all counts. Business was still running. So what sort of design program do you use for your drawings?
AutoCAD. Yeah, that's the main one I use. I've always run AutoCAD. I like it. It's an engineering program, so there's some idiosyncrasies that you have to deal with in being a landscape designer. But my theory is if I can draw it by hand, I can draw it on AutoCAD. So whereas some of the other programs don't feel as drawable. Yeah, don't even know if that's a word.
Absolutely, it is. Yep. Do you do all your designs by hand first and then?
No, not necessarily. I like drawing by hand. I feel it probably gets a bit more creativity, a bit more passion, because I actually love hand drawing. But depending what you're doing, depending the style of the garden, things like that, sometimes it's just easier to get on and, if you're doing something that's quite, straight, geometric, you got long view lines or funny angles, like, weird angles and things that you can just set up on CAD and play with. I think it's sometimes easier to do that. So
Yeah.
it depends what we're doing. When I had multiple staff, every garden got designed on by hand. So I'd draw it by hand and then hand it off to someone to draft up. So I found that the easiest way to do that, and I could colour code things and draw it up pretty quickly and then move it on to the drafting process.
Yep.
So, and then I could go out and do go out chasing work, quoting work, meeting clients while the process was still happening in the office.
Yeah, I wonder that how design companies work when there's like one main head designer. Whether the other people are actually designing or just drafting, basically.
Yeah, so probably our most productive year we had, you'd say principal designer, but Kim was designing for her own clients. So she basically was seeing her own clients, doing all that side of things, doing a lot of the drafting herself. We had someone a couple of days a week that could pinch hit and help her out. But essentially I had 2 people drafting under me, and I was, I'd have anything from back then like 12 to 20 design jobs running at a time. And, Kim might have 1, 2, 4 jobs. And so she was sort of self-managing and just doing her own thing. And then I had, a couple of staff working under me. And, we were smashing out projects. I think that's the funny thing. We like at the height of Candeo, we were doing between 60 and 70 design projects a year, which is pretty crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
So what's next for Candeo? What have you got on the agenda?
This is probably the opposite of everybody else I'm going the other way. I'm trying to scale down a little bit, do stuff that I really enjoy. I think the college is taking up a lot of time, and I'm actually enjoying it. Like it's a really different challenge, and I think I'm at a point where I want to do less, but do the jobs that I enjoy, and sort of handpick a bit more. And I don't know. We've done those years where we've done 60 to 70 design jobs and had plenty built. We were getting between 25 and 40 jobs on the ground each year, which is insane. And I don't know. I think just want to go the other way. We're in Torquay. We moved from the eastern suburbs of Melbourne to Torquay because both my wife and I when we were both working for Candeo Design, we were really struggling with that work-life balance. And it got to a point that we were like, you know what, let's do it. When the college started as well, there was going to be such an upheaval in my schedule that I'm like, now's the time. I can drive to Melbourne if I have to, or it was the time. So we packed up and we moved down the surf coast, and just trying to find that balance of work life and walking on the beach, and dogs love it. It's pretty good lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm biased because I've been down here all my life in Geelong.
Yeah, bloody amazing. Geelong, I can't believe Kim would have done it 5 years ago, and I was the one holding off. And now I'm like, oh my God, should have done it 5 years ago.
Yeah, you can get caught up in just like you wanting to go backwards rather than grow your business like most people say they want to do. But you can get caught up in just chasing your tail and you're not actually getting anywhere.
Yeah, mate, the truth is, I feel like the last couple of years, I don't want this to sound negative, but I felt like I was running a business to pay other people's wages.
No, that's what I like in a lot of there'd be a lot of people.
I felt like I was genuinely killing myself to make sure everybody else got paid. And mate, we've had some amazing staff, absolutely beautiful, been super lucky, amazing people, but at what cost? And I don't know. There's more to it. So I absolutely love what I do. Love designing gardens, but yeah, I don't know what do you need to live and how much. I'm also really honest about this is my job. I do this. I design gardens for a living. You know, I design gardens to make my money and pay my mortgage and feed my family and feed the dogs and yeah, like, but I'm bloody lucky. I'm super lucky because I love what I do. But at the end of the day, it's still got to pay bills and buy sneakers. Yeah, but it's a job, and I think that's one thing that is slowly changing. There's a lot of people out there that do it a bit part-time, a bit of a hobby, don't have to make much money because they don't, because it's only a part-time thing. And I think that's been a big thing over the years, that people are starting to charge, the right amount of money, because you can get such varying spectrums of landscape design. You can get a landscape design for $500, or you can get one for $50,000. But yeah, you get what you pay for. I certainly I find it interesting when clients go, "Oh, we've got another quote, and it's half of your price." I'm like, "Well, good luck." "Oh, you're not going to match it?" I don't even want to. Not interested. So that became a rule at Candeo a while back. If someone asks you to drop your price, just shake their hand and walk away.
Yeah, I'd never do it. Yeah. And I don't think I've ever had someone they'll say, "Can you drop your price?" And you say, "Nah." And I say, "Oh, we'll sign up anyway." They still do it.
It's normally it happens. They're like, "Oh, well, okay." Yeah. I also love. We used to charge consultation fees, and people will go, "What do you get? What do we get for our, $200 or something?" You get me getting up from the work that I'm doing right now and driving out to your house with, 25 years of experience and 15 years of designing gardens to talk to you about what you want done in your property. That's what you get. And I always found that funny. Oh, yeah, but what do we get? That's what you get. Yeah. So it's, I don't know. It's crazy. But I also think a lot of people are now, doing it the right way. And there was a time where you certainly got $500 landscape designs. You got $500 worth of landscape design.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, some people weren't charging enough. I've spoken to a couple of people I know. That is definitely one of those instances where you do get what you pay.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem either, because some people, there's the market for the top end, the market for the bottom end. Yeah. Some people have got no idea at all, so they need to pay someone $300 just to show them, to put a hedge around the border.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. We've done a really good business of, like, we're so strong horticulturally. Like, everybody that I employed had a horticulture background, and I genuinely believe in that. And also for me, it's been a security blanket. like everything I do or everything I add on, I still have horticulture to fall back on. So if I was unemployed tomorrow, I could go and earn money mowing lawns, pruning roses, doing horticulture. Like, so that's, I've always felt really comfortable that I have that as a fallback. And that's not to take anything away from it. My wife's a horticulturalist. Like, but the further I try and reach, I've always taken horticulture with me and a huge respect for it. And we've always done like horticultural advice, horticultural advisories. And I think it's just a brilliant way to earn money as a landscape designer in being able to give design / horticultural advice. And yeah, mate, we sell plants, we sell, lawn, mulch, all sorts of things. So it's just a little way to add on to a design business that's it's hard. It's hard making money out of landscape design sometimes.
Yeah.
Cash flow is a nightmare.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, people don't realise it because they think, oh, you haven't got not buying materials or anything like that, but you got to pay for something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's weeks where you think you're the richest person in the world.
Weeks where you the end of the quarter, right. GST.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. You put your GST away. 3 months later, you're like, yes. And then it's gone.
Yeah. Look, it took me a while to do that, but I still don't do GST, but I do the pay-as-you-go.
Yeah.
Because it's, otherwise it just builds up.
Oh, mate. Years ago, when I got back from the Middle East, it was weird. I had a bit of trouble settling back in and feeling comfortable. I think it just changes you a little bit, going and living over there. And I went to a party, and I don't know how I got to this party, but it was a lot of really high-end business people. And I remember sitting at the table talking to a woman who was a lawyer for the Australian Wheat Board. And we had this discussion about running your own business. And she said, I find it amazing that tradespeople who have these unbelievable skills that they can earn money from, but never get taught how to run a business. And she said, I have no skills whatsoever, except I've been taught to run a business. My skill is running a business. And it was this crazy conversation at a weird party that has stuck with me from almost the day. It was in the first couple of months of being back from Dubai. And it just stuck with me, learn more about running a business. Always, every conversation you can have with someone who's a successful business person, pick their brain. I'm crazy for it. Even last week, we were in Sydney, and I was talking to a guy that runs a multi-billion-dollar company, and it's just pick. I just want to know. But I've made so many mistakes.
Yeah, that's
so many mistakes.
You wouldn't be alone in that.
Nah, and the tax department loved me for a while, and but it's so easy to dig yourself into a hole that you don't even know you're in, just by not understanding the ins and outs of running a business.
Yep.
So,
so the last question I'm going to ask is, what is your favourite plant?
Favourite plant? Jeez.
You'd be a well qualified person to answer that.
God, one.
Yeah. Well, you can choose a couple if you like.
Choose a couple. Okay, my first ever favourite plant was Pyrrhus japonica.
I learned that one when I was studying horticulture as well.
Yeah, when I started landscaping, that was my first ever favourite plant, and I just, there's something about it still to this day that I just find fascinating. Went through a stage where I absolutely loved ginkgos, and I'm kind of back on them a little bit, depending on where they are.
Yeah.
The love Liriope, evergreen giant.
Yeah.
Mate, that fixes so many problems in gardens.
It's quite, it does grow in a lot of spots.
Yeah, and I have a weird fascination with like Hydrangea quercifolia, the oak leaf hydrangeas.
Yep.
They just intrigue me. I think the texture that they add to gardens, and then the variants with, like semi-deciduous and their colour, their bronzing and their lime new foliage. And people look at them, people who are novice gardeners look at them like, that looks like a hydrangea, like when the flower comes out, but it's a cone rather than the ball. There's so much interest in it. It's a really enjoyable plant. So, there's a few. I like finding new stuff and falling in love with it and then moving on from it. But to me, it's more about the hunt. Finding things that you like and then being able to come back. We've got crazy amounts of reference material of things that we like or seen or, I don't think you ever stop hunting. I like the hunt. Yeah.
Brent, can't thank you enough for your time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
It's been great to sit here with you, Joel. Appreciate it.